Carl Coulange for the Sports Hit List by the fans and for the fans. We are here for a special wrestling segment. We love these wrestling segments. We love these table talk conversations. Who better to join me than TK the Tank Tom Kenny? He's not talking baseball. He's not talking football or basketball. He's talking pro wrestling. TK, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Carl. Thanks for having me on today.
So we went back and forth. Shout out to Nick Molinaro. We said we were going to have some in-studio wrestling segments, and we wanted to discuss Ruthless Aggression versus the Attitude Era. Before we even had who's picking what side, I did the polite thing. I texted Tom and said, which side do you want? And he said,
I'll take the winning side.
Which is Ruthless Aggression.
Oh, it's the Attitude Era, brother. It's the Attitude Era all the way.
All right. So,
I'll even let you start.
Listen, no, you can start. You can make your point. And I want to say this is that we have two great eras back to back.
Yes.
So before we even get into the debate, we know we have two prominent eras in WWE that really engineered post, I guess, that kind of started with the WCW and the Monday Night Wars kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into your points, but I felt there were two back-to-back eras that were just gold, which is why we're having the debate, because from fans I've spoken to, a lot of them can make the argument, which I know I could probably make, is why Ruthless was better. But your point.
To my point, Attitude Era. So the Attitude Era changed wrestling forever. Wrestling hasn't been the same since the Attitude Era. If you look back at the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, any of the golden years of wrestling, it was different. All right, you had larger-than-life guys still. You had Hulk Hogan, you had Macho Man, yes, but you didn't see the risks and just the must-see TV that the Attitude Era brought. So you're here in 1997, 1998, and you see DX on the TV. You see Shawn Michaels, doing some crazy stuff with the Canadian flag, sticking it up his nose. You see Stone Cold coming out, giving Vince McMahon a beer bath, flipping off the crowd, being the coolest dude ever. The Rock, I just said Stone Cold was the coolest dude ever. You see The Rock coming in. So you have all this influx of brand new talent. Talent we'll never see again like that. You don't have anyone as charismatic as The Rock. You don't have anyone as over as Stone Cold. You could even look at the January 4th, 1999 episode of Monday Night Raw.
You got numbers on the top of your head now?
Yeah, of course I do. When Mankind wins the title, the crowd erupted. We don't have people as invested in wrestling as we did in the late 90s because of the characters they presented. If you look at the guys they brought up and the guys that became famous and that made their name in the Attitude Era, you got Kurt Angle. You got That's Gotta Be Kane. You got Triple H. You got The Rock. You got Austin. Now, those are the main guys. But even if we look at the undercard, Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys, the Dudleys, these guys are still around today. These guys just main evented an AEW pay-per-view. These guys are main eventing WWE pay-per-views still today because the undercard was good. Now, there was a lot of car crash TV. There's a lot of people that say, if you go back and watch Raw, it doesn't hold up to the same standards it does today. But it was a different period. Raw was must-see. You couldn't miss an episode of Monday Night Raw. I don't think you disagree with me on this. You could not miss an episode because something was going to happen. Stone Cold was going to do something to Vince McMahon. You might not tune in. You might miss Stone Cold hitting Vince McMahon with the urinal in the hospital. There was something happening every Monday night that made Raw must see. That's why in 1999, May 10th, 1999, here's another date off the top of my dome, Raw scored an 8.1 rating. So if this is about the people and about what the people say is the best, how can you say the Attitude Era wasn't the best era when it was making the most money, scoring the highest TV ratings, getting the best pay-per-view buys? We had the best WrestleMania ever, WrestleMania 17 in 2001. You look at that card cannot be replicated, even with the talent we have today. It's just simple to me. If you're going to start off a pay-per-view with, Angle, Benoit, and Jericho in a triple threat match, there's the work rate right there. There's the attitude. There's the entertainment. We just don't see that. I think the Ruthless Aggression era, when you look at it, yeah, they had some top stars, some Randy Orton, some John Cena's, they did that. But who's still wrestling from the under? I'm not making any points. I'm saying,
make my points
look at the mid and undercard from the Ruthless Aggression. Who do you got? Nobody. Nobody was able to last. There are no Edge and Christians. There are no Dudley Boys.
Are you finished with your whole 20 minutes soliloquy or not? Are you done?
This is my opening, yeah. No,
When's your 20 minutes?
Take it, Carl.
Can we get a time check? Because he just took up the whole time segment.
That was maybe
baffling.
35 seconds.
Yeah, that was like baffling the whole entire point. And you talk about not having stars. That was your main point about, right? And you also said Triple H and Kurt Angle were in the Attitude. They weren't in their primes in the Attitude Era. They were in their primes in the Ruthless Aggression Era.
I disagree.
You can disagree all you want to, but prime Triple H is what? Prime Evolution. So let me finish. So let me start off with you right here. You made your points. Let me make my points, right? So you want to talk about talent and talents of pools. The biggest recruiting class in WWE history, or the best recruiting class ever, came from what? The Ruthless Aggression Era, which you can't deny. Batista, John Cena, Randy Orton, and who's the fourth guy? The reigning, defending Brock Lesnar, who had arguably the greatest 2-year run in WWE history from 2002 to 2004 as a main eventer. So you want to talk about pools of talent? Let's really dive deep and look at pools of talent when it comes to Ruthless Aggression. There was so much talent. What did they do? A brand split to basically honor and say, okay, we're going to have talent elevated on different brands. And they respected those brands, unlike they do now, where guys were able to flourish even more. You want to talk about flourishing? This was prime Eddie Guerrero. This was Chris Benoit, who both held the championship, and was a touching moment for both of them at where? WrestleMania 20. You weren't getting those touching storylines. You were getting long ever storylines when you got to Ruthless Aggression. You want to talk about Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio. Not only that, some of the guys from the Attitude Era still had longevity. We saw Shawn Michaels resurrect his career during Ruthless Aggression Era. Prime Shawn Michaels putting on key matches during that whole entire stretch. You also get The Rock. Now, The Rock stepped away for a little bit, and he kind of passed the torch to Brock Lesnar during that era, but you also get Hollywood Rock. Let's not forget that. That was during Ruthless Aggression Era. Rock helping out younger talent in Hurricane Helms during Ruthless Aggression Era. You still get Stone Cold Steve Austin saying what? What? That wasn't Attitude Era. That was Ruthless Aggression. Stone Cold versus Booker T in a supermarket. That's Ruthless Aggression Era. So all these different kinds of storylines, you get Triple H helping the younger talent in Batista and Randy Orton with Evolution, tying in with Ric Flair. That's all Ruthless Aggression. Not to mention Eric Bischoff came around. He's a GM in Ruthless Aggression. Stephanie McMahon. How can you forget Basic Thugonomics, John Cena? Look at you smiling because you loved it.
No, I'm smiling
because that's Ruthless Aggression.
You're cooking, I know.
But that's Ruthless Aggression. What are we talking about here?
Ruthless
What are we talking
Aggression
about?
great.
Kurt Angle as a champion. There was a Booker T, all hail King Booker. That's Ruthless Aggression. What are we doing here? Come on now, let's be serious. I'm not saying Attitude Era isn't great, but when you talk about evolution of talent, when you talk about developing more talent and storylines, Ruthless Aggression gets the win. I'm sorry.
Carl, Attitude Era, if you look pre-Attitude Era, it was Bret Hart, it was Shawn Michaels, it was Diesel, it was, those guys. Attitude Era came, you took the ringmaster Steve Austin, you turned him into Stone Cold. That is the best evolution of talent we've ever seen. You took Rocky
Not better than the top four from OVW.
Oh, yes, much better. Are you insane?
Bro,
Carl, you got to be out of your mind. No.
Time out.
You cannot say anyone is better than The Rock or Stone Cold from any Ruthless Aggression era. Those are the top two best wrestlers that ever got in the ring.
John Cena literally got over in Ruthless Aggression #1. Batista went from Deacon Batista, and he changed his character to becoming the Animal, Dave Batista. And Brock Lesnar had the greatest 2-year run. Not to mention, I didn't even talk about Randy Orton and his evolution during that time.
And
what
Randy
are we
Orton
doing?
didn't really become into his own until 2009, maybe 2007, 2004.
He was the legend.
How do you even have a baby
Let me ask you a question.
spit in Triple Face's
Let me ask you a question.
and be a baby face?
Let me ask you a question. When was the Legend Killer? In what era?
It was probably
Ruthless
2004,
Aggression.
2005, yeah.
Ruthless Aggression.
Okay.
Legend Killer Randy Orton, putting legends.
And why was he there to kill legends?
Say it again?
Because there was legends that were made in the Attitude Era by the people that came before him. Undertaker made Kane into his brother, Paul Bearer. Kane was a stalwart in WWE, never went away.
And I'm
Brock
glad
Lesnar went away.
You know what?
Batista was green as
I'm
grass
glad
when he
you said
first
that.
started. Batista couldn't work a match for years until he faced Undertaker at WrestleMania 23 and finally taught him how to work a match.
Well, let me tell you, in terms of talking matches, which we never even dived into, you talked about the whole Attitude Era and pay-per-view buy rates. Ruthless Aggression had better matches, and I can literally list them and tell you a lot of them. You talked about the greatest WrestleMania, but you didn't talk about Shawn versus Undertaker 1. Was it during what era? Ruthless Aggression. That was in 2007. You want to talk about
Shawn versus Undertaker 1 at WrestleMania?
Yeah, it was
that
Ruthless.
2009.
2000 what?
That was 2009.
Okay, excuse me. Fine. But
and also Booker T and Austin was in Attitude Era, 2001.
That wasn't in Attitude.
That was the invasion. That was December 2001.
That's not Attitude. Attitude Era was dead once. That Attitude Era was completely dead during what?
During what?
Once the invasion and they bought WCW, Attitude Era basically fizzled out at that point. It was no longer
Attitude Era
just
changed into Ruthless Aggression. It fizzled into
it
something
fizzled
less.
out. It fizzled
which
out.
was the
It
Ruthless
fizzled out.
Aggression.
It fizzled out. And technically, and you know what? Technically, back to your point about it, I believe Attitude
What
Era.
about WrestleMania 18,
Listen,
the best
Ruthless Aggression, in my
wrestling match
opinion,
of all time,
honestly,
The Rock versus Hulk Hogan.
and again, Ruthless Aggression, in my opinion, I believe it ended. 2008, 2009 is kind of where you're at the scale where it came to an end at that point, in my opinion.
PG era, yeah.
So, but again, it was still technically 2009. I think the match qualities were a lot better during the Ruthless Aggression era than we're talking about in Attitude, because you had prime Eddie Guerrero. I even forgot to mention another guy. You talk about rising stars, JBL, who was a tag team in your era, became a champion in what?
That's
Ruthless
right.
Aggression.
That's right.
So you're
because
talking
they
about
had
getting
a good undercard in
no,
my era.
because
they had
again,
they had JBL, they had the
you had
acolytes,
all
they
these
had
guys.
the Dudley Boys.
You have all these guys that didn't get opportunities in the Attitude Era because why? You had Stone Cold, you had The Rock, you had Mankind.
You had the best ever at the top.
Yes, but then now all of these undercard guys who still were just as good getting their shine in what? Ruthless Aggression.
The Ruthless Aggression, the talent roster was so thin, they tried to stretch it out and have 2 world champions. Let me tell you one thing. If you know anything about football, if you have 2 running backs, you don't have 1 running back. If you have 2 world champions, you don't have 1 world champion. You can't tell me things weren't better when Roman was the only world champion here. Now that they've introduced the second title.
We're not.
Right?
First of all, we're not talking about this era. We're talking.
You have one guy
this
at
is
the
where you
top
make a
that needs to
mistake,
be
though.
beaten. You have one guy.
This is where you make a mistake.
Top guy.
This is where you make a mistake. You want to compare Roman. We're not talking about those Roman. We're talking about Ruthless Aggression era.
No,
right
we
now.
are. But I'm saying,
but again,
the
and remember
business
Prime
is better
Cena,
when there's 1 world title.
Prime Cena doing everything that he did during that era. And we also forgot to mention another part of the Ruthless Aggression era, which I didn't even touch upon, is the ECW era with Paul Heyman, where we have Rob Van Dam going into there one night only, or whatever the special that they had during that time, and Rob Van Dam winning the WWE Championship for the first time. The introduction to what? Money in the Bank was during what?
Why was
Ruthless
that
Aggression.
important is because Rob
When
Van
was
Dam
Ruthless Aggression
there
introduced?
In the Attitude Era, and people
When was
wanted him
Ruthless
to win.
Aggression introduced? During what era?
2002, Ruthless Aggression.
No, that's not my question. My question was, when was Money in the Bank introduced? What year?
2005.
2005, which was what? Considered Ruthless
Ruthless
Aggression.
yeah,
And how
okay.
did that not help? Again, the point of the business, which I don't think you understand, is, again, you want to pave the way for the future, which is what Ruthless Aggression did. You're primary for that, right? You're primary for that, paving the way for the future, right?
Yes,
Are you
but
not?
Paul, you're saying, look at all these gimmicks. Look at everything they had to do to keep people interested
I'm
in
not
the Ruthless
denying
Aggression
it.
era. They had to do
I'm not
anything they
denying
could.
that.
Money in the banks. They're coming up with different things, and that's always good. But in the Attitude Era, they didn't need to do that because the stars that were on TV were all you needed. People tuned in just to see what The Rock would say.
Listen,
People
people tuned in to the point where
8.1
Brock...
million people tuned in
Bro.
to watch Monday Night Raw, to watch
Bro.
Kane versus Badass Billy Gunn at the start of the show because they knew the main event was going to be a 6-man tag team between Vince, The Rock, Stone Cold, Undertaker, Kane, and Triple H. You don't have that top-tier talent anymore. I'm not popping as hard for anyone in the Ruthless Aggression era as I am
Brock
for this
Lesnar and
Attitude
John
Era.
Cena, you
What
can't
about
see
Brock
me.
Lesnar? Yeah, no,
Did you hear what you just said?
They had to
Did you hear
shove
what-
John Cena down your throat
And
for
they did it
years.
for Austin. That wasn't for years. It was natural. He
What
went
are
from
you
basic
talking
thug.
about?
Time out. Now I'm gonna cook because now you're getting me annoyed.
No.
John Cena literally went from he couldn't figure out his character to the point where he was on a bus and he
Yeah, the
figured out
prototype.
Yeah,
He was about to
yeah,
go.
right. And then he came up with basic thugonomics, and then Cena literally got over. In 2005, when he became champion, was probably one of the highest primes for kids. Basically, John Cena had the entire kid movement with "You Can't See Me" with the colorful T-shirts, with the Make-A-Wish foundations. What are you talking about? There was no star. John Cena was the biggest star during that era.
John Cena,
Stop it.
2005, he pins JBL. 2005, he pins JBL at WrestleMania. All right, Austin,
And then he goes on the following year to beat Triple H.
In 1998, in 2001,
Bro,
the crowd
stop
still
it.
wants to see.
Stop it.
Unanimously
Stop it.
wants to see
Little
Stone Cold
kids
Steve
are-
Austin win the title.
Little kids are still coming up to
2008,
me and telling me you
Cena's
can't
getting
see me. What are you talking about?
Booed out of the building by
Stop it.
anyone who is not a young child
Bro,
or a woman.
listen.
And everyone knows
He's
it.
not
If
even
you were
letting me finish
alive
my
there,
point.
you know it.
He's not even finishing. Let me finish my point.
I'm
Final
letting
point.
you finish your points for the last 5 minutes. You've been rolling on a train that hasn't stopped.
Final point here I'm going to make. I'm not taking away anything from the Attitude Era. All I'm saying is, again, when you're paving the way for the future, you're looking at Ruthless Aggression. Ruthless Aggression gave you Eddie Guerrero.
Ruthless Aggression gave you Katie Vick.
Can you let me finish, please? Ruthless Aggression gave you, again, arguably the best recruiting class in WWE history, the OVW class, which if you look at the record of their trajectory.
That's 4 guys.
Four guys, and I'm not even finished yet.
Attitude Era got the Radicals.
Listen, I'm not even finished with you yet. We have 4 guys, not to mention, like I said, Eddie Guerrero's. You're talking about the JBLs. You're talking about King Booker. You're talking about a lot of pool of talent. I didn't even get into mentioning the tag teams that were developed from that point. All I'm saying to you is this: understanding this. When you're paving the way for the business, Ruthless Aggression was able to do that with their talent pool and be able to expose bigger and better talent and getting them to where they need to get. I'm sorry, case closed. That's my point.
JBL, Eddie Guerrero, all the guys he just mentioned were all there in the Attitude Era. They're all mid-carders, okay? So millions and millions of people, by watching Stone Cold and The Rock, we're seeing JBL, we're seeing Eddie Guerrero, we're seeing Chris Benoit. Hold on. And because of that, they were able to be the stars of the future because the Attitude Era set that up for them. The Attitude Era garnered the most eyes on WWF, WWE that has ever been, the highest television ratings, the biggest amounts of pops and just draws. You look at the old stadiums, they're filled with people, filled with signs. Everyone's hyped to be there. It created an atmosphere that was must-see TV, which no other WWE generation was able to emulate.
You tell us, fans out there, which team you picking? You picking Attitude Era with TK or Ruthless Aggression with me? Like, share, comment, subscribe, all Hitless content across all social media platforms. We'll see you next time.